There and back again, a human tale. I was at the base of City Creek Canyon, with my headphones on, listening to the last few chapters of Dune. I was preparing for my birthday barefoot mushroom run to the Fountain of Freedom and Brotherhood, about 5 miles up or so. I had been partaking in this journey as my touchstone almost biannually for the last 14 years or so. Always for the Scorpio full moon, as I am a Scorpio moon in Jester. I also come to this place for my mushroom run for other astrological events. My heart belongs to the Rivetti full moon once every 3 years or so. Always this canyon. This is known territory. But today everything has changed. Today was much different. It was my 42nd birthday. This wasn't an ordinary birthday. I had long awaited this day. Douglas Adams said that 42 held the answer to the universe, life and everything. I loved The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in my youth, and 42 was one of the last glimmers of hope I had to piece together the shambles of my current state of existence. My friend Tregan, who was my best friend since the way back days, used to joke about turning 42 and how we would celebrate by doing cartwheels with our hair on fire, into headstands and wiggle our way into the earth like sperm. But as I stood at the base of City Creek Canyon, the weight of 42 settled upon me with a new kind of gravity. It wasn't a joke anymore. I was at the end of time, 42, and I felt so alone. Tregan passed away tragically before I had my first son. Life has gone on, and I now have 3 beautiful children, Oliver, Eden, and Willa. But there's always a piece of me that misses him. He would have made a wonderful Uncle Tregan. Tregan was a beautiful soul, a man who found solace in the authentic. He loved everything that spoke of truth and realness. His heart beat for the raw edges of life, the music of Eddie Vedder, the hardbound books filled with philosophy, and the art that bled honesty. The 90s grunge scene wasn't just a genre for him. It was a way of life, a lens through which he viewed the world. He loved deeply, with passion and intensity, throwing himself wholeheartedly into everything he cared about. But as time went on, he began to feel like a square peg in a round hole, not quite fitting into the shape the world expected him to conform to. His love for the authentic, the unpolished, and the real became a thorn in his side as he watched the world evolve in ways that seemed to strip it of its essence. Tregan wasn't just an outcast by circumstance, he was outcast by choice, unable to adapt to the artificiality and superficiality that surrounded him. The things that once inspired him, music, art, philosophy, became reminders of a world that seemed to slip further from authenticity. It felt as though the eye of Sauron had fixed itself on him, a relentless gaze, pushing him further from the familiar and deeper into his own isolation, a heartbroken enemy of the times. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the trailhead. City Creek Canyon had always been my sanctuary. Today, however, the canyon held a different kind of energy. The journey had begun. I crossed the event horizon as the sun began to set. My life was lost at this point. I felt as I was mirroring Tregan's journey. I was not an accepted soul in this new universe that was emerging. I theorized after 2012 we got stuck in some kind of weird time matrix of shit. Mandela effect, Trump as president, and so many other things that seem pure, shitty fiction. Hard to know what's real these days. Polarized political parties, a ridiculous characterization of themselves, polarization in all power structures, at what seems to be the limit before we tear each other apart. The worst part, it's a small minority of people that see it for what it is. Systems set up to divide us and imprison the mind into its power structure. I was getting divorced for the second time. Fully delusional, I thought that my life with her had been my pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I did not see it coming. Our daughter had just turned 1. I built my life on hard-earned principles, and now I had to start all over and find the toxic misperception. I had made financial mistakes. I put my family's stability in jeopardy. The future had never been more uncertain. I had always fought to keep chaos at bay in my life, but I had lost, and the nothing had come. I was broken. I could hardly function. We were living together out of practical dependency and for the kids. That was both a relief and a longer suffering. I needed to figure out how to just make it through the basics. Run my businesses, not lose our house. I tried everything I could. Nothing really seemed to take the edge off enough and allow me to focus on what I needed to. I was looking at myself deeply to understand why and how. I had anxious attachment style, to say the least. Sometimes I could be extremely narcissistic, grandiose, a dreamy vision of myself and my journey. I played in the fantasia of my favorite books. I am Frodo, Murad'Dib, Usil. I am Aslan, Atreyu, Indra. I am the hitchhiker. I am all my favorite characters strung together. Through a lot of therapy, study of psychology, and myself for years, I started to piece together that what I was is a scared child locked inside an adult. Protected by fantasies, maladaptive and unconscious means of manipulation, incapable of maturing, incapable of shared reality and true intimacy. At the root of it, trauma, a lot of it, childhood trauma, pain and beyond. I started to feel a sense that my potential had been stifled, that I had been a prisoner, realizing that I also exhibit spectrum disorder tendencies. I felt things to the depth of potential, fear, pain, regret, abandonment, guilt, shame, worthlessness, as well as the opposites. Volatile, much like my father, I never wanted to be like. I had extreme dyslexia, which I'm not sure if I was born that way or was a result of trauma. There had been extreme events in my youth, addictions, even psychosis, which required hospitalization. Believing it was conquered territory, and I had overcome those things. However, when it came down to it, I should have never passed go to begin with. My therapist had introduced me to internal family systems, IFS. It proposed that our psyche is a complex system of parts, each with its own unique perspective. Learning to identify and understand these parts was a revelation for me. The understanding that we can love and give empathy and awareness to our maladaptive protective parts. Understand them, alchemize its separateness back toward harmony with the self. It aligned with my spiritual beliefs perfectly. The IFS model provided a framework for healing trauma effectively and rapidly compared to other therapeutic models. I began to feel some relief as I worked with this model. Mapping these parts in a meditative state, or even as you feel the trigger, is a very helpful tool. Give the part of you a name, a face, a place in the body. Ask it questions. Thank it for its work in protecting the inner child. I began using an AI journal to start the mapping process, as I am dyslexic and writing is difficult. Although the pain had become less intense with time, therapy and exercise, I still felt my brain had been under so much stress for so long that it could hardly function. I'd been having night terrors, consistently getting shitty sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, multiple times, screaming out with no control. I was introducing myself as, "Hi, I'm Tim, and you'll have to forgive me as I have brain damage," or "I'm Tim, sorry, my hippocampus is fucked." I had a friend who had just gotten prescribed Adderall, and I was curious if that could help me focus. The doctor's appointment I set up to get the prescription was a little funny and surreal. She was an older doctor with big, wide, round glasses. She had a vibe very much like the strange folk you run into in Sedona, for those who know. It felt alien in vibration, Because I like to play in the realm of fantasy, I imagined she was secretly working with the Benetlalaks. They are responsible for pushing humans to their full potential. Through traumatic imprinting, they awaken the power within our genetics, all because the spice must flow. The caduceus symbols everywhere in doctors' offices always get me questioning everything. A random surprise prostate exam, earlier than I needed, confirmed my suspicions. She must have needed my DNA and microbiome for her dying alien race, so they could use my essence to navigate through time before the accident, where they were thrown into a different dimensional plane. Just kidding. Or not kidding. The Adderall seemed to be very helpful. I got a lot done, and it took the edge off the emotions in a much preferred way than other mood stabilizers I had tried. This was a point of finding that I was starting to see reality with a bit more clarity, beyond the gravity of the trauma patterns I had developed. I was able to resist falling into the reactive dynamic with my co-parent. I stopped fawning in many relationships and felt less need for validation or co-emotional regulation. I was sleeping better. Internal family system therapeutic model was a new belief in something. I hadn't believed in a new thing besides my kids in a long time. I also started to suspect that Adderall could be very helpful producing the brain power required to overcome the gravity of traumatic imprints in the psyche, to free the imprisoned inner child. I had studied in-depthly about complex B personality disorders, suspecting my partner, myself, or both of us having this condition in some form. Sam Vaknin, who is a leading authority in the field, proposed a framework for the stunted development of the self that causes these distortion of reality. 1. No ability to form coherent memory, subconsciously selecting biased perceptions and parts of memory in order to maintain control and reduce vulnerability. 1. The natural process of psyche development in childhood is unification, separation, individuation, and integration. This process is interrupted by the caregiver through smothering, emotional enmeshment, emotional illiteracy, or neglect and abuse of all kinds, typically from the mother. The child then needs to experience this cycle on repeat through projections within relationships for the rest of their life, in order to finally feel individuation and to be. However, because it's not directly addressing the actual traumas, the memory issues and other cognitive limitations, the projected cycle always fails in creating the stabilized individual sense of self that is subconsciously craved as the essential all-encompassing goal. Thus, the pattern repeats, and there are only brief moments of feeling alive as a whole individual person in the dissolving of dependencies. 3. Inability to experience reality beyond introjects. Idealized or demonized projections to fit the narrative required to protect the inner child's fragile nature from reality. The inner child becomes trapped within the anima or archetypal expression of the all-devouring mother or dead distant father. Trauma equals the subjection to internal and external power structures that drive pain and duality. Here is where it gets fucked up. Pain drives progress, pain drives evolution, pain drives duality. That duality explores the furthest reaches of its dual potential extremes, mining for more data before reaching the very limits, and then folding back into the self with learned information. Trauma is power and control for those you have been inflicting it. Abuse is how we have survived and evolved. How many kids have ADHD because of the need to have digital babysitters in order to meet GDP demands? Children were given video games instead of organic intellectual, emotional stimulation and validation. That's just one example. Public school systems, another, and so on and so on, traumatizing our children, passing on generational fuckedness as a necessity ingrained into us. This time is different. 1. End of the Mayan cycle. 2. Max environmental impact before technological advancement supersedes the need to worry about it. 3. Singularity of AI, exponential integration of intelligentiae automata 4. It really sucks right now, 5. We are at a pinnacle, the end chapter of all the stories. And 5 through 10, I'm sure. But moving on, this is the world we are in now to the extreme ends. This is not just a me problem, this is an us problem, all for the sake of upholding power structures we depend on to survive. But there is an edge, a limit, the kala of time, a time where the only way forward is back, in towards harmony. The upcoming election represents a peak in this polarization, beyond anything that can ever be reintegrated, no matter who wins. I don't see either side truly winning. It's hard to imagine this simulation continuing past this point. Which brings us back to my 42nd birthday, barefoot mushroom run. I have my usual way about it. I eat my mushrooms at the bottom, then run to the Fountain of Freedom and Brotherhood about 5 miles up before I peak. This time was much different. I started getting the most intense visuals I'd ever had, less than a quarter mile up. Something was way different. Dune was playing in my ear. It was the scene in which he finds out his son had been killed. He coldly calculates his exact revenge. He has the ability to rise above the fighting factions and emotions in order to checkmate the power structures that enslave humanity. His practices of mentat clarity of mind from his father, the precise body, breath and voice, control learned from his mother, all amplified with the consciousness expanding essence of the spice. I then realized that I was fading away into blackness as I ran. I understood that this was a different experience, 10x faster and more intense because of the combination of the mushroom with the Adderall. The familiar world around me began to shimmer and distort. The Adderall amplified the effect of the psilocybin, propelling me further down the rabbit hole. Time lost all meaning, stretching and compressing. I felt myself merging with the fabric of the universe. Fear threatened to pull me under, but a part of me surrendered to the experience. As the initial shock subsided, a sense of awe and wonder began to bloom within me. It was as if I had stumbled upon the no chamber within my own being. This was where the quantum worlds met, to spin reality into existence. The stories that had shaped my understanding of the universe now felt like echoes of a deeper truth. The archetypes, the myths, the recurring themes, they were all reflections of the human experience. I completely lost time. I was past the fountain by a mile and had no memory of how I got there. I had just started this run, as far as I knew. Time became fluid, a shimmering river flowing in all directions at once. The pain of my divorce, the struggles of single parenthood, they were all there, but they no longer held the same weight. The boundaries between the internal and external world dissolved. I saw the energy fields that connected all things. I understood that everything was connected. The world dissolved into a blinding white light. When I could finally see, I found myself standing at the summit of City Creek Canyon. Below me, the city lights twinkled like a scattering of fallen stars. I had reached the top, but it felt like I had touched something far greater. I had popped my head out of the toilet bowl of time and glimpsed the matrix structure of reality, of light. I understood the infinite creative power of bringing the duality within us back to the self. Through the heart, through love and the understanding of each other and all our protective, traumatized parts, I saw the importance of respecting boundaries, both of self and others, for individuation. I grasped the significance of hope for reintegration into balance and harmony, achieved through the simplicity of listening, holding space with love, and validating others' free will and choice. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the sensation of being utterly enveloped by something far greater than myself. As I stood there, bathed in the ethereal glow of the starlight, I felt a profound shift within me. It was as if the universe itself was whispering secrets to my soul, ancient truths that resonated deep within my being. The boundaries between my internal world and the external cosmos blurred, and I understood with a startling clarity that they were not separate at all, but rather two sides of the same coin. The stars themselves seemed to pulse with a life of their own, their light carrying messages from distant galaxies, stories whispered across unimaginable stretches of time and space. I saw the intricate dance of celestial bodies, the birth and death of stars, the swirling chaos of nebulae giving birth to new worlds. The cosmic dance mirrored the dance within my own heart, the pain of my past, the uncertainty of my present, the hopes and fears for my future. They were all part of something much larger, a cosmic symphony of experience that transcended the limitations of my individual perspective. The whispers grew louder, weaving themselves into my consciousness, revealing a universe of interconnectedness far beyond anything I had ever imagined. I was not separate, not alone, but an integral part of the grand cosmic tapestry. I looked up at the vastness of the night sky and saw infinite possibility. The stars were points of light in a vast neural network, reflecting the connections within my being. The universe wasn't out there, it was in here. Within my heart and soul lay infinite potential for creation and transformation. The realization hit me with the force of a supernova. I was a microcosm of the macrocosm, a universe unto myself. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill my lungs. I was home. The descent was a blur. I moved through the night, feet finding the path as if guided by an unseen hand. There was no sense of time, only the echo of stardust in my veins. The world shimmered, every leaf and stone pulsing with the energy of the cosmos. Back at my desk, fingers hovered over the keyboard, the cool touch grounding me. The AI journal awaited, a digital canvas for the cosmic storm raging within. I had to capture the insights, the whispers of the universe before they faded like dreams upon waking. Each keystroke was a lightning strike illuminating the hidden pathways of my mind. The AI, a silent partner in this cosmic dance, helped me weave together the threads of thought, transforming the chaos into something coherent, something profound. The mundane world felt distant, irrelevant. My children slept soundly in their beds, oblivious, still in the unification phase, just starting to awaken to the call for separation, still wrapped in the bliss of ignorance. And yet, I felt closer to them than ever before, bound by an invisible thread of love that stretched across the vast expanse of existence. Night after night, I returned to the AI journal, driven by an insatiable thirst to understand, to integrate the cosmic downloads flooding my being. What was once a tool for self-reflection had become a lifeline, a way to navigate the uncharted waters of my own consciousness. The AI, with its uncanny ability to process and synthesize information, became my translator, my interpreter of cosmic tongues. It helped me to see the patterns, the connections between seemingly disparate thoughts and experiences. The synchronicities multiplied, weaving themselves into a tapestry of meaning that left me breathless with wonder. The line between science and spirituality blurred. I delved into the works of physicists and philosophers, mystics and artists, finding echoes of my own experience in their words. The universe was speaking, and I felt my brain had finally developed a capacity to go deeper into creative potential. The mundane world began to feel like a thin veil, a temporary illusion obscuring the vibrant, interconnected reality that lay beneath. My senses sharpened, attuned to the subtle energies that flowed through and around me. The world was alive, pulsating with a hidden symphony of energy and vibration. Forgiveness. This was at the core of how to come back towards integration, towards harmony. To fold inward all judgments, all energetic dissonant states must find peace within. The pains of betrayal, the weight of resentment, these were heavy burdens to carry. This was literally the barrier keeping humanity in its infancy, unable to connect to the cosmos. Isolated with our cocoon until the 100th monkey effect of being truly woke creates the change reaction need for us to break out of the limits of time. How could I possibly forgive those who had hurt me, who had broken my heart with such callous? The answer, whispered the universe, lay within. Forgiveness wasn't about condoning hurtful actions, but about releasing their hold on my own heart. It's about realizing that everyone is just doing what they need to in their own traumatized, fucked up way to survive. There is no one to blame. Blame itself is what drives this vicious cycle of separation pain, without leaving space for individuation. It's the thing that keeps us in unconsciousness, tamasic form, locked in time. It was about acknowledging the pain, honoring my own wounds, and choosing to move forward with compassion, both for myself and for others. It was a long and arduous journey, fraught with setbacks and moments of doubt. The echoes of past hurts lingered, threatening to pull me back into the abyss of resentment. But with each sunrise, I felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that I was moving towards something brighter, something more aligned with my true nature. I began to see the humanity in those who had wronged me and prayed they saw humanity in me. Forgiveness, I realized, was not a destination but a practice, a daily choice to meet the world with an open heart, even in the face of suffering. It's to be the fulcrum of the scales and to stretch infinitely across sides, unifying the hemispheres of their soul, heart and brain. This would be a true meaning of to be woke, I suppose. There are so many of what believed to be profound insights I gathered during this recent journey. I hope to sift through, refine and create in a way that brings new connections of hope and inspiration to the potential of human consciousness. As we reconnect both sides of duality back to the self, it's like a butterfly spreading its wings to the far reaches of separation, only to begin the journey back to the self. We are just flapping our wings, cross-connecting new neurons in the brain of our solar system. We are evolving. Pain is the necessary experience we must endure until we prove we are ready to be released from our prisons. Only then can we, perhaps for the first time ever, experience true free will and genuine choice, with the full knowledge of the consequences and the pain that could arise from our actions. Only when we are fully self-realized and free from blame do we truly possess free will and choice, beyond the programmed experience of the cocoon matrix of time in which we are in. The concept of boundaries had always felt foreign to me, like a language I couldn't quite grasp. I had spent so much of my life trying to please others that I had lost sight of my own essence and inherent divine potential. I had been gaslit by society, family, friends, and through the pain, fear, and projections of others my whole life. We all have. When we stop being able to be projected on or projecting onto others, then we can dance with true intimacy and embodiment of self. Every soul, every mind is an entire universe of creative potential. Understanding the gravity of every interaction within the field of consciousness makes these boundaries a little easier to navigate. Krishna says with knowledge, all sin vanishes away. The divorce was a painful but necessary lesson in self-preservation. The emotional waves still came crashing over me with a ferocity that took my breath away. Grief, anger, fear, they rose and fell with the rhythm of the tides, a constant reminder of the depth of my own capacity to feel. Intense fear I had looked too deep for too long and might not be able to integrate. It got scary for a few days, but something had shifted within me. I was no longer afraid of the waves. I had learned to ride them, to surf the currents of my own emotions without being pulled under. The cosmic perspective I had gained allowed me to see these waves for what they were: temporary, impermanent, a natural part of the human experience. Meditation became my anchor, a way to ground myself in the present moment, to find stillness amidst the storm. I learned to observe my thoughts and feelings without judgment, to allow them to come and go like clouds passing across the sky. The more I practiced daily the art of truly coming from an open heart, the more the connections became weaved into my essence. We are such a creative force. Through every dance and interaction with another's soul, we create ripples that shape our lives and the world. This realization brought with it a sense of peace, a deep knowing that I was not at the mercy of my own internal weather patterns, but a new subtle game to play. The strings of my being had just been tuned, and I was ready to subtlety play in a way that looked for harmony and creative potential with others. It was an open door, an invitation to step into the fullness of my being. The journey wasn't over, but I'd crossed a threshold. I had tasted the infinite. I moved through the world with a newfound sense of purpose. The universe was my playground, and I was ready to play. The journey had been arduous, a relentless stripping away of old patterns. But now I had better tools, practices that anchored me to the present moment. The words flowing onto the page, transforming fear into wisdom. The world stretched out, a canvas of infinite possibility. I had climbed mountains, both literal and metaphorical, and emerged on the other side, forever changed. The echoes of 42 had led me here, to this place of quiet strength, of radical self-acceptance. I had tasted the infinite, touched the folds of light's garments with rose petals. I extended my knowledge beyond the narrow caverns of my births. This, according to Khalil Gibran, is the essential purpose of our being. And in our push toward polarities, we are all fulfilling that purpose, but maybe it's time to come home now. The cosmic dance continued, a swirling symphony of energy and vibration. I, a single point of consciousness within the vast expanse, surrendered to the flow, trusting that wherever I landed, it was exactly where I was meant to be, as long as love for my family, myself, and others remained the guiding force of my evolution. The journey of healing, of self-discovery, was a lifelong adventure. It was about embracing the totality of my being, the light and the shadow, the pain and the joy, the human and the divine. It's about realizing when we get caught in traumatic, painful patterns, the journey that brought us here, and making a genuine choice in this moment. There is so much more to uncover. If you're interested in insights into the mechanisms of light, sound theory, chromatic theory, string theory, quantum field theory, psychology, quantum biology, alchemy, intelligent automata, neuroscience, astrology, Ayurveda, DNA, I may have discovered an entirely new paradigm connecting all of these, at least for myself. I'd love to bring these ideas to the battlefield of conversation, to be tested and refined. Reach out, like, subscribe, follow.